Moving from CPD to JPD, how to develop joint practice development and build social capital in schools. This presentation looks at how continuous professional development for teachers has changed and is changing and what the future might hold. Historically, professional development for teachers was very much knowledge-based. Institutions have At the beginning of this journey, schools might find that they simply encourage staff to share good practice. As we said earlier, there's nothing intrinsically wrong with this. It's a good place to start. There may well be a mix of in-house training days and external courses, and the knowledge model probably will remain as a natural assumption of many teachers as the accepted form of CPD or in-service training. As this begins to develop, we may find